Okay. All glories to Mother Rytasha, all glories to Religion of Love, all glories to the assembled devotees, Jai. Okay. We are in Carlsbad, New Mexico, right by the Pecos River, and we're starting from a new book, One God, One Religion. Oh, commentary by Mother Rytasha again. Oh, lucky us. One God, One Religion. I, Rajak Khan, was a freedom fighter, and as a freedom fighter fought for my country in the War of Liberation. And though we won the land, the war was lost, for no peace was found, not among men, and not in man. And I, searching this world, ate of life's joys and sorrows. And
one second. Your stream with the book isn't showing.
Oh, really? 1 second.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, yeah. Thanks for letting me know. Okie dokie. And let me just make sure that didn't mess up. Okay, that's all working. Inshallah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And sick unto death it made me, for I found that which was sweet in the beginning grew bitter in time. And I, suffering, called out to God, and God heard me, and by his causeless mercy sent to me the one the people call the Angel of Bengal. And where she led, I followed, and in travels passed over mountains and language. Borders which didn't exist were crossed, and layer by layer I awakened from the dream most men call life into the eternal reality of bliss and knowledge. And going into the east, everywhere we went, she taught, saying, In the beginning, the Lord created the world, and on it he poured the seas of salt and sweet lakes and hills heaped up, and in time God created man, each nation as a tribe, and to each he gave a teaching, different in the deserts and on the seas, different on the plains, different according to time and circumstance, but all in remembrance of him. Now a new time is come, bringing light in darkness, the path made straight, and religion undivided. As there is one God with unlimited names, so too is there one religion, and that religion is love. And the people were confused and asked, How can you say there is but one religion when we see there are many? And she answered, saying, A man is confused about religion when he looks only at the surface, seeing only the outward appearance and not the inner truth. Different religions may be likened to the digging of a well. If you dig for water in a rocky place, you need a certain kind of equipment. And if you dig in a sandy place, you will need a different kind of equipment. So on the surface there will be differences, but the goal is the same, water. And water once reached is water. So it is with religion, which is given according to different custom, culture, time, and need. On the surface, there will be differences, but the goal is the same, God. And God once reached is God. And again they asked, You speak of a universal brotherhood, yet we see between the leaders of different religions no brotherhood at all. That, she answered, is because they have not experienced the unity in the depths, only the diversity on the surface. They have just enough religion to make them hate, but not enough religion to make them love. And going down into the land of Bengal with some of the disciples, after the rainy season, when the earth was lush and flowering, we stopped to rest under the shade of a large banyan tree. And the disciples there gathered were of every religion. And one disciple, born in a Hindu family, said, "My uncle says his people call you Guru, but he has seen you passing in the road, and you do not wear the neck beads and markings of a guru. So how can you be Guru?" And she laughed, saying, "A donkey may be seen carrying many books. That does not necessarily mean he is a scholar. So also the dress of a man says only what a man wants you to think of him, not necessarily what he really is." And it was true that she wore no dress nor designations of any religion, and when asked what she was, would say simply that she was a servant of the servants of God. For when she preached, she taught the truths inherent in all religions, and the Hindus believed her a Hindu, and the Muslims said she preached pure Islam, and the Christians and Jews claimed her teachings as their own. And she explained that each religion contains a different outer teaching of its time, and therefore by time destroyed. And there is the inner teaching, the same in all religions, which is eternal, and therefore good for all time. The wise will know the difference. And as we sat listening, the sun arced across the sky, and a cool crescent moon arose in the heavens. And the people, hearing that she was there, a large crowd had gathered, and pointing at the banyan tree, she continued, saying, "This tree has lived for 100 years or more, and when it was born, men called this land India, and this tree was considered an Indian. And at partition, it became a Pakistani, and now after the War of Liberation, a Bangladeshi. But for all the different names that may be affixed to it, it remains always a tree." Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, and Jew, for all the different names that may be affixed to man, we remain eternally spiritual souls. And in that time there was rioting in the cities, one faith against another, and many houses of worship were destroyed and people killed. And going boldly into the streets, she preached strongly, "Look at the world and see what God has given. Now look again at the world and see what man has done with what God has given. In a world of riches there are the poor. In a world of plenty there are the hungry. In a world where God sends a prophet to every people, there is ignorance." And turning to the men who had been fighting, she said, "You are fighting here because false leaders have taught that it is your differences that make you enemies. It is not your differences that are the enemy, but ignorance. You are like the 4 men who were given a gold coin. The first man was a Greek who said, 'With this coin we should buy staffel.' But the second man, who was a Persian, said, 'No, I want angur.' The third was a Turk, and he said, 'I do not want angur, I want uzum.' And the fourth, an Arab, insisted they buy inab. And so, like you, they began to fight. For in their ignorance they did not know that each in his own language had wanted the same thing, grapes. Know that when a man is ignorant, he makes mistakes, and when he makes mistakes, he suffers." And there was a woman listening on a balcony, and she called down, "If God is merciful as you say, why does he let us suffer?" And to this common question she answered, "The mercy of God is found in his scripture, for all scriptures teach that which is good and that which is bad for us. And all teach that good begets good, and bad begets bad. So when we look at the world and see the suffering, we should ask not why God would let this happen, but why we would let this happen." And the woman persisted, saying, "Yes, but we see even the good suffer." And she explained that for one who turns away from God, the trials of life are a punishment. But for one who is following God, the trials of life are a test, which passing brings him closer to God. I can stop there for right now and read the commentary. I, Raja Khan, was a freedom fighter, and as a freedom fighter fought for my country in the War of Liberation. We see that for people, wars are fought for freedom and for liberation, and to make things they are told that are going to make things for better. And though we won the land, the war was lost. For no peace was found, not among men and not in man. Liberation does not come from war. Liberation only comes from the spiritual. And the absence of war does not mean peace. And I, searching this world, ate of life's joys and sorrows. Rajak is every man, and like all of us, he experiences the world which has some joy and some sorrow. And sick unto death it made me, for I found that which was sweet in the beginning grew bitter in time. It's not that there is no joy in the world, it's that it doesn't last. And I, suffering, called out to God. This is the classic experience, that when we suffer is when we turn to God. And God heard me, and by his causeless mercy sent to me the one the people call the Angel of Bengal. And God is merciful, even if we don't deserve it. That is the meaning of causeless mercy. And where she led, I followed. So this is the disciple-spiritual master relationship. The spiritual master leads in every way by word and by actions, and the disciple follows. And in travels passed over mountains and language, borders which didn't exist were crossed. There are many false things. There are many blocks to our happiness, and they are all illusory. In spiritual life, these are demolished. And layer by layer, I awaken from the dream most men call life into the eternal reality of bliss and knowledge. This is like peeling an onion. Layer by layer of illusion and ignorance is by the process gently peeled away until we come to the core self and awaken from the dream most people call life into the eternal reality of bliss and knowledge. And going into the east, everywhere we went she taught, saying, "In the beginning the Lord created the world, and on it he poured the seas of salt, and sweet lakes and hills heaped up, and in time God created man, each nation as a tribe, and to each he gave a teaching, different in the deserts and on the seas, different on the plains, different according to time and circumstance, but all in remembrance of him." So it appears different because it is given at different times and at different localities, customs, cultures. But again, all of God's teaching is that we may remember God. And when we say remember, we mean be with God. Now a new time is come. We're talking about our time. Bringing light in darkness is talking about bringing knowledge into the darkness of ignorance. The path made straight means God is giving the simplest way to come to the spiritual, the chanting of the holy names, and religion undivided. Religion was never meant to be divided. When God gave the teaching into the world, whether it be through Jesus or Moses or Muhammad or any of these great spiritual personalities, it was meant for the whole world. But man, dividing it up, made many of the one. In this time, in the religion of love, God is uniting by love what man has divided by hate. The religion of love includes all the messages of God, honors all the great spiritual personalities of God, and unites the whole world as one family of God. As there is one God, all religions teach that there is one Supreme Lord, with unlimited names. But there are many names of God. In every locality, custom, and culture there is a name of God, and every name of God is God. So too is there one religion, and that religion is love. Every religion, as given by God, is a religion of love. And the people were confused and asked, "How can you say there is but one religion when we see there are many?" And she answered, saying, "A man is confused about religion when he looks only at the surface, seeing only the outward appearance and not the inner truth." When you go deeply into any religion, ultimately you come to the same one God. When you stay on the surface, it will appear that there are different religions and even a different God. Different religions may be likened to the digging of a well. If you dig for water in a rocky place, you need a certain kind of equipment. And if you dig in a sandy place, you'll need a different kind of equipment. So on the surface there will be differences. But the goal is the same, water. And water once reached is water. So it is with religion, which is given according to different custom, culture, time, and need. On the surface there will be differences, but the goal is the same, God. And God once reached is God. And again they asked, "You speak of a universal brotherhood, yet we see between the leaders of different religions no brotherhood at all." In this time, in the religion of love, God is sending a message that we are all, man, woman, Christian, Jew, Hindu, Muslim, American, Indian, we are all seen by God as one family, the family of God. Let no man divide it, for that goes against the desires of the Supreme Lord. That, she answered, is because they have not experienced the unity in the depths, only the diversity on the surface. They have just enough religion to make them hate, but not enough religion to make them love. And going down into the land of Bengal with some of the disciples, after the rainy season, when the earth was lush and flowering, we stopped to rest under the shade of a large banyan tree, and the disciples there gathered were of every religion. Mostly people are categorized by their religion, not by any particular choice they make, but by the family they are born into. And one disciple born in a Hindu family said, "My uncle says his people call you Guru, but he has seen you passing in the road, and you do not wear the neck beads and markings of a Guru, so how can you be Guru?" And she laughed, saying, "A donkey may be seen carrying many books. That does not necessarily mean he is a scholar. And so also the dress of a man says only what a man wants you to think of him, not necessarily what he really is." Putting on the robes, the beads, the beards, does not make you a holy man. Spiritual life is always an interior work, purification of the heart. And it was true that she wore no dress nor designations of any religion, and when asked what she was, would say simply that she was a servant of the servants of God. This is very important. we take a humble position, and our role in the world is to serve. Everyone is a servant of God. And when we say servant, we mean that we become a servant out of love of God. Servants in the material world is a lowly position, but in the spiritual, it is a very high position. To aspire to be the servant of God, to please God by your actions, is the perfection of love. And our role is to assist others in attaining that perfection. So we are called the servants of the servants of God. For when she preached, she taught the truths inherent in all religions. And the Hindus believed her a Hindu, and the Muslims said she preached pure Islam, and the Christians and Jews claimed her teachings as their own. This message that God is giving into the world, that the people call the religion of love, is familiar to all religions because it is the heart of all religions. And she explained that each religion contains a different outer teaching of its time, and therefore by time destroyed. And there is the inner teaching, the same in all religions, which is eternal and therefore good for all time. The wise will know the difference. According to different time and circumstances, what is called sub-religious principles, principles that have to do with food, with marriage, things of this sort, may be different. But this is not religion. This is the organization of society to create peace so that one may then go more deeply into the spiritual. So there may be different sub-religious laws concerning marriage or diet, but if you go deeply into the eternal teaching that is given by God, there will be no difference. And that, you will see, is what the people call the religion of love. And as we sat listening, the sun arced across the sky, and a cruel crescent moon arose in the heavens, and the people hearing that she was there, a large crowd had gathered, and pointing at the banyan tree, she continued, saying, "This tree has lived for 100 years or more, and when it was born, this land was called India, and this tree was considered an Indian. And at partition it became a Pakistani, and now after the War of Liberation a Bangladeshi. But for all the different names that may be affixed to it, it remains always a tree. Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, and Jew, for all the different names that may be affixed to man, we remain eternally spiritual souls." So who are we? This is the beginning of spiritual life, to know who you truly are, not the temporary bodily designation, which is changeable. One can be born a Buddhist and convert into Christianity and become a Christian. You can be born in India and you can go to America and become an American citizen. The point is, all these things are changeable. But here is something that is not changeable and is eternal, and that is your spiritual self. So spiritual practices are to come to the realization that you are spirit soul, eternal, blissful, and conscious. And in that time there was rioting in the cities, one faith against another, and many houses of worship were destroyed and people killed. This is because people think that religions are different, and that one religion has the truth and another does not. But all religions of God are the truth. And so it is come that religions, which are about love, preach hate. And what they hate is anything different. And the differences that we've understood are all surface differences. And differences are not meant to be the cause of hatred, but to show the many varieties of beauty that God has created in the world. And going boldly into the streets, she preached strongly. So God has given everything in this world for us to live a satisfying life. There is sufficient. Look at the world and see what God has given. Now look again at the world and see what man has done with what God has given. In a world of riches, there are the poor. In material life, in material consciousness, because material things are limited, people live in fear, and they fear there is not enough. Not enough money, not enough food, not enough time. And so they become greedy, and they start to hoard. And the stronger people take more than they need. That's why the wonderful saying, there's enough for every man's need, but not enough for every man's greed. In a world of plenty there are the hungry, and a world where God sends a prophet to every people there is ignorance. So there shouldn't be this disparity. There is enough. If people would come to spiritual consciousness, they would not be greedy. They would be satisfied with having enough, and would not need more than enough, thus depriving other people. Right now we have many programs, much social work to help the poor, the disenfranchised, the suffering people. But all of these programs are like watering the leaf of a tree. And though people have done them with a good heart, they will not work. Only when you water the root, which is the spiritual, when the consciousness of man is changed, then only will the material problems of the world be solved. And turning to the men who had been fighting, she said, "You are fighting here because false leaders have taught that it is your differences that make you enemies. It is not your differences that are the enemy, but ignorance." The role of a leader is to give liberation and to give knowledge, and knowledge is only wisdom when it is acted upon. You are like the 4 men who were given a gold coin. The first man was a Greek who said, "With this coin we should buy staffel." But the second man, who was a Persian, said, "No, I want angur." The third was a Turk, and he said, "I do not want angur, I want uzum." And the fourth, an Arab, insisted they buy inab. And so, like you, they began to fight, for in their ignorance they did not know that each in his own language had wanted the same thing, grapes. So many problems come from miscommunication. So it is very important that we are very clear in what we say, and more important, that we check that what we've said is heard. Know that when a man is ignorant, he makes mistakes, and when he makes mistakes, he suffers. The problem is not that people are bad. The cause of suffering is ignorance, and it is the leadership that must give knowledge. And here is a nice story to illustrate the misinformation given by our leaders in the world. There was a man in heaven sitting on his fluffy cloud who happened to look down and saw what appeared to be a fantastic party going on, men and women dancing and enjoying like anything. So he rushes to find the keeper of the gates of heaven and asks, "What's that below?" The keeper says, "That's hell." And the man says, "I want to go there." The keeper says, "Well, you have free will. If that's where you want to go, I will take you there." And so they enter the elevator and go down, down, all the way down. When the door opens, the man sees the most horrible suffering and torture going on. The man says, "Whoa, what is this?" And the keeper says, "This is hell." "Well, what was that I saw?" says the man. The keeper thinks for a moment and then understands and chuckling says, "Oh, that was the advertising campaign." Okay. Oh, there's more to it. And there was a woman listening on a balcony and she called down, "If God is merciful as you say, why does he let us suffer?" And to this common question she answered, "The mercy of God is found in his scripture. For all scriptures teach that which is good and that which is bad for us. And all teach that good begets good and bad begets bad." So here we're speaking of action and reaction. What in the East is called karma, and what Jesus had spoken, "As you sow, so shall you reap." Very simply, whatever good you do, good will come back to you. And whatever bad you do, you will suffer in equal measure the bad coming back to you. So when we look at the world and see the suffering, we should ask not why God would let this happen, but why we would let this happen. It's very important to understand that we are in control of our destiny. And by our actions, we are creating reactions. So if you don't like your life, know that you can change it. And the woman persisted, saying, "Yes, but we see even the good suffer." And she explained that for one who turns away from God, the trials of life are a punishment. But for one who is following God, the trials of life are a test, which passing brings him closer to God. This is important. Difficult times will come upon us, even on the path to God. And it's how we see them and how we use them that will either elevate or degrade us. When hard times come, some people blame others. Some may even blame God. And they become angry and bitter and poison themselves with this negativity. The wise see a lesson and the hand of God in every circumstance. Okay, let's pause there. Okay, does anyone have any questions related to the class?
I have to think of one. It's like I have a question, but there's no formulation really. It's just like an idea in my head. So give me a little bit.
Oh, take your time. I know how those go. While he's thinking, do you have a question, love?
No, but it's just like how Mother Rytasha did teaching through the examples, make the teaching more clear to understand.
Oh, which example did you like?
About the different religion that she gave an example as three or four people, they were wanted the same thing, but they were talking different language, but they were insisting they want that, but they didn't know they all want the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or the people think that by having the different clothes or appearance and make them holy, but it's not. It's all about the knowledge within ourselves and learning anything from the religion and the scriptures that we can process and get closer and closer to God and get knowledge, not by the appearance.
Yes, she's very good at being able to relate these teachings in ways that everybody can understand. And those examples are very clear, like the 4 men given the gold coin, as you said. Miscommunication, as she said, is the cause of so much problems.
We experienced recently that with meeting with different people with different religion name, but they don't, and they're fighting and they're saying that we know better, we are higher, but they don't know, they lost the heart of the religion.
Yeah, they're not really practicing with much love. See, the goal is always the same. is to reach love of God, to be again with God. This is the goal of all religions. But again, because of all the surface differences, all the different outward, the outward designations, yes, the different organizations created by man throughout time, have created nothing but divisions, really. As she said, excuse me, all organized religions, though they preach brotherhood, in reality separate brother from brother. Like the example of the tree, all this stuff is changeable. It's just on the surface, like a tree was, the same tree has never moved, right? And this land was India, and then the borders changed, right? And now it's Pakistani, and the borders change again. Now it's called Bangladeshi. So, the tree's always been there. It's going to be there long after, probably. But all the changes that we call it, those are just temporary changes that have to do with what? Politics, with what? Organized religion that our community's part of. This is all temporary, when eternally we're all just spirit souls, beloved lovers of God. And one of my favorite teachers when I was in high school was His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And he said the same thing. Everybody's trying to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy. And he said if everyone just could understand this, that we all are wanting the exact same thing, then helping one another is a much more efficient and logical and happier proposal than fighting each other, just selfishly wanting just what you want for yourself and not being concerned with others. This is the story of there was the scene of hell where these people were sitting around a table, and they had for arms very, very long eating utensils, right? And they were so long they couldn't feed themselves, and so they're all just starving. And then the scene switches to a scene of heaven, but it's the exact same scenario, except everyone's well fed because everyone's feeding each other, because they can reach the other person. If we all can understand and cut through all the miscommunication that we're all after the exact same thing, we're all after happiness. And then if we but hearken to the message of God, which God is continually reminding us that our happiness does not lie in things with which dust and moths dust corrupt, as Jesus said, these temporary material things, but our happiness lies in the eternal, ecstatic, spiritual, and love of God. Then in this understanding, in this clear knowledge that every spirit soul has the same purpose in life, spiritual realization, becoming again the lover of God, servant of the servants of God, well, this would be heaven on earth. But greed and the illusion that we are these bodies is so powerful that people don't have the ears to hear this, unfortunately, even though it's so logical, even though it's so clear, even though all the examples are spot on, the analogies are unmistakable and relevant. Some people just don't have the ears to hear because they don't want to, sadly. Did you get your question formulated?
Yeah, it kind of is related to what you just said. Question I was wondering is, are the worldly pleasures that we have here, are they distractions? And say we're by intention following God, then what is the role of these pleasures? And for example, it could be like a house, nutritious food, and things that help sustain you, and they are somewhat pleasurable. And what is the reaction of laboring to get these pleasures? What does that do to your spiritual life?
Well, as she said also in the books, that material opulences such as wealth, beauty, name, and fame are in themselves neither good nor bad. Just like a knife in the hands of a surgeon may save your life, a knife in the hand of a murderer may take your life. So it's not things which are good or bad, it's the use made of them. And so it's all about the consciousness behind it that determines the result, the reaction of seeking these things or enjoying these things or so desiring these things. And as she says, as God says, of course, that the perfection of life is not to give up everything, but to use everything in the service of good and the service of God. Now, people have the misconception that in spiritual life you have to give up all these joys, you give up all these pleasures, and renunciation is a very frightening thing to many people. What I have to give up, oh no, I'm giving up all the things I like, oh no. But that's all illusory, really. Spiritual life is actually very, very joyful. It's a very pleasurable. It's the most happy life, really, because your happiness isn't temporary, it's eternal, and it keeps expanding and growing, because our natural consciousness, the spiritual consciousness of every soul, is eternal, full of knowledge, and ecstatically blissful. So, of course, we're always seeking pleasure. That is the nature of the mind. The mind is always seeking some enjoyment through our various senses. This is the nature of material consciousness, and you can see all around us, everything we do because we think it'll bring us happiness. And everything we avoid because we think it will bring us distress, right? And we call things good or good karma if it's pleasurable. We call things bad or bad karma if it's unpleasant, right? Or unlucky, bad luck, right? So everything in life, if your consciousness is dovetailed in devotional service, where you make God the supreme goal of your life, well then everything at your disposal, everything that so-called property or so-called activities, to maintain, hearth and home, whatnot, such as going to work and paying the bills, putting food on the table, all the needful things, maintaining the body and the body of our relatives who, it's our duty to take care of. So all of these can be dovetailed in devotional service if you make the supreme goal the pleasure of God and not your own pleasure. Now, not everything can be dovetailed, of course, in devotional service, obviously. I don't know how, skeet shooting is, for example, be dovetailed in the service of God, shooting a bunch of stuff, but the basic things, things we enjoy, all can be dovetailed in service, such as, let's say, food, for example. I like to enjoy this nice, tasty snack, or I enjoy to grab a pizza, or I like to have this wonderful home-cooked meal, right? Well, when you cook that food, when you buy those groceries, when you order that vegetarian pizza on the menu, do so in the consciousness that it's all by God's loving grace that we have the opportunity to have all these things, and offer that food unto God before you accept it yourself. Offer it in love and devotion. Now the whole process of going to the grocery store, the whole process of ordering, so maybe you're thinking like, what do I want to order at the restaurant? Well, I wonder what God would like too. Your consciousness dovetailed, this expression dovetailed. If you've ever seen a dove, its wings, all of its feathers, they go so nicely streamlined together. A dove is actually very soft. If you've ever pet a dove, I have. So when you dovetail everything in devotional service, and it's all just is a matter of shifting your consciousness. And same with going to work, paying the bills, making that paycheck, getting that dollar bill, y'all. As long as we have material bodies, we have to maintain body and soul together. So we have to, of course, eat and get proper sleep and medicine when we're sick, all such things, right? So we don't ever give up material life 100%. That's actually impossible. As long as you're in a material body, material life is always going to be a part of it. And then it's finding the balance, though, with all the material needs of the body and the goal of life, the actual purpose, which is our spiritual realization, our spiritual life, which takes precedence. There has to be a balance, of course, So going to work, for example, to pay rent, you can always have an attitude of gratitude. Thank you, God, that I have this opportunity to be able to work and earn an income. Thank you, God, that I can offer this money to keep the lights on, keep the heat on, so that we can be warm, so that we can best serve God. And that's always the mentality, is how can I use everything in God's service, and seeing how God is sending in every circumstance. And it's all a matter of a shift of consciousness. It doesn't mean like, oh, you have to just drop out of school middle of your degree program, or oh, I need to quit my job and just wander the countryside as a mendicant. No, it's not. I mean, you can do that if you really want to, but that's not the idea of spiritual life. I mean, even in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that everyone should fulfill their own duties, their own prescribed duties due to their circumstances in life, but do everything in remembrance of Him, and He will make life perfect. So, as far as activities that can't be dovetailed in devotional service, let's say like mundane things that we enjoy, like, whatever, cinema flicks or pop music or video games, I used to be quite the gamer. Oh my gosh, hours a day. To artificially renounce some of these things when you're not ready to isn't really advisable. A lot of devotees in the beginning of spiritual life, they do what's called over-endeavor. They think, oh, this is material, I shouldn't do this, or oh, this isn't good for me, I shouldn't do that, and I should. Mother Rytasha would say, stop shoulding on yourself. She said, I'd like to just take this word should out of the dictionary, really. Everything's a choice. You live with those choices. And so my own personal example, I know I've related to you, meet this before. So I had the desire to enjoy video games. I liked that. I had fun doing it. I enjoyed that. I desired it. But I knew in knowledge that these activities wasn't the best use of my time, and wasn't really helping me in spiritualization, obviously. Although I tried to dovetail video gaming into devotional service, it didn't work. Despite my good intentions, it didn't work. I dovetailed Discord, though, which is the communication app for gaming, that I was able to do by God's grace. But what I did was I was just easy on myself, and I just understood where I was at in my spiritual life. When we hear about all these great saints, when we hear about the ideal of our spiritual consciousness as taught by God, this is the platform that we strive for, and verily is the platforms that we will hit as we progress step by step, as we walk the path made straight, as we engage in devotional service, purify our heart and mind little by little. But we don't run before we walk. We don't just start at that high level, As she says in one of the books, where do we begin? And the woman asked her, where do we begin on the path? And she says, begin where you are. So being real, seriously, just being real and honest with yourself, and where am I at right now in life? And knowing that, okay, well, I'm over here, and the goal is there. Like, okay, well, that's my goal. I mean, I'm not going to reach that today, but step by step at my own organic pace, that's where you're going towards. And that will naturally happen, actually. The more you purify your consciousness, the more ignorance that is freed from your mind, well, when that ignorance is released, is gone, purified by chanting the holy names, by hearing and practicing the Word of God, well, what takes its place is love. So almost like all these little layers, like I said, like an onion, peeling layer by layer by layer, until eventually there's nothing left but love. And as you peel those layers, as you get more purified, as you get closer to your natural spiritual self, you will find that automatically you're going to lose the taste for some of these material activities that aren't so conducive to spiritual life, or material pleasures and joys that we enjoy. And I experienced that myself. So I was easy with myself. I didn't just force myself to renounce video gaming or this and that. I knew I desired it, and I knew if I forced myself not to, I'd be just thinking about it and I'd want to do it. And so that's a false renunciation. So not good either, little over endeavor. But naturally, when the time was right, I actually did just lost the taste for it. I wasn't into it anymore. And what replaced it was the higher taste of devotional service. And I started to get more and more great joy out of hearing God's scriptures, out of chanting His holy names, of being of service and spiritual life. I really enjoy this so much. This is it's nothing better for me, honestly. I mean, what we're doing right now, having class, having these discussions, this is the highlight of my day today. Being able to hear these teachings from Mother Rytasha, from these books, to have these discussions. This is enlivening to me. I love this, versus before I used to have long talks about politics or this or that. I used to be into, not into them anymore. As Mother Rytasha said, it's the giving up of a lesser taste in exchange for a higher taste, and it comes natural. You'll just grow out of it, really. So back to your question, these things that we're working towards, these things that we enjoy, you don't have to give up your enjoyment. You have to give up the things you like. I remember when I was a volunteer suicide prevention counselor, this little nonprofit called New Hope back in California, and I was just out of high school. And one of the ladies there, who's been there for years, she said something that stuck with me. This had to do with someone who was trying to quit smoking, and obviously quitting smoking is a good thing for the body. It's good to give up that bad habit, but the person was also going through a really tough time. Some family emergencies, someone in the hospital, and she told that person, don't give up your cigarettes just yet. If you need it right now, it's okay. You can step by step. Now, of course, I wouldn't say keep smoking. Of course, we really what we should be giving up are illusions about things, and our habits that cause suffering to ourselves and others. Of course, smoking be one of them. But the lesson I took from that, the inner meaning from what I understood from that interaction, from that story she told, was that, trying to rip away these things that are such a part of us, a part of our daily life, part of our mental and bodily conception of the self, that we've been ingrained with, that we've been engaged with lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Just to rip it away like that when you're not ready for it, it can be shocking. And for some people, going cold turkey, with some drug addictions can be very dangerous, even fatal. So you go at your own pace. Of course, I would, as Mother Tasha would also advise, and as God advises, to give up causes of our suffering, things like intoxication, adultery, or womanizing, or gambling, or eating things full of suffering. These are things that right off the bat, I know you enjoy these things, you think you have fun with these things, but really they're always a cause of suffering, especially with the drugs and all those stuff. It's just, you think you get high, but when you come down, you're just lower than where you started. So, giving up those things, is a good idea. But other I can say, not so harmful or harmless enjoyments in life, or activities, step by step, walk before you run, all in their own good time. Do these things just naturally fall away if you sincerely make God the supreme goal of your life and daily are seeking Him? We all have our little goals. We all have our things. Okay, I have to, have this schedule for the week. I have these little goals I have to work on with my family. I gotta, fix this room or this or that. Yeah, you have all those little goals, but never forget the ultimate goal. And keep that ultimate goal as much as you can, in your consciousness, in your remembrance. And she would say, write down those goals and put them somewhere you can always see it. Every day, daily. That's like our daily chanting. Every day, you're chipping away at it, getting closer to that goal. Kaizen. Kaizen. That was a motto when they were rebuilding Japan after it was just infrastructure completely demolished after World War II. Kaizen was a motto where everyone in the country do a little bit every day to improve. Even if it's not much, even if it's very small, but if it's every day, one step closer to the goal, Kaizen. And spiritual life is like that too. As long as you do a little bit each day towards the ultimate goal, those little things add up. And gosh, look at Japan's economy today. They were in absolute shambles, but this attitude. So attitude of gratitude. Keep the big picture always in your mind. The big picture that spiritual life, spiritualization. This is our real purpose, and being easy and honest with yourself where you're at, and the best you can dovetail everything in service. How can I be of service? How can I please God in any situation? How can I dovetail everything in my life in a spiritual way as much as I can? So, hope that helps answer, brother.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. Got a few more minutes. Anybody have any last question or comment? Going once. Going twice. Okay, I guess we'll stop there then. So, all glories, Mother Rytasha, all glorious religion of love, all glories to the assembled devotees. Jai.